Right then, okay, good morning everybody, hope you're all well. Thank you for joining me this morning. Not sure about you, personally can't believe we're heading into March already, so hopefully you've all had a nice and busy start to the year, very successful quarter one. So again, for those of you that don't know, my name's Lee Houston, looking after the channel here at VanillaIP, and the purpose for today's conference call, or webinar rather, is to talk about the product which you've all just used to dial in to access this on. And that's our conference bridge, or as we call it, the Me2Me conference bridge. So the idea of the webinar this morning is to run through the products in terms of its capabilities, talk about how it's going to turn into a margin opportunity for you as our reseller channel, and then look at some of the reports which are available in order to enhance the customer experience in the back end. So without further ado, let's jump into things. So in terms of a product, as I say, you should be fairly familiar with how it operates as you've all just dialed into it. So me as a moderator, I can send out details to a pre-arranged participants for a conference call that I've arranged and scheduled in my diary. So this is not your ad hoc conference call where you just need to quickly bring a colleague into a call. This is something that I've pre-arranged, I've pre-designed, and I've scheduled it in my diary. So I have the ability to send out a participant conference ID and a telephone number out to all of my participants for which they will use to dial in. Now, within a business, you can have multiple conference bridges, multiple moderators. Everybody in the business can all have their own different credentials in order to dial in and own and access their own conference bridge. Now, in this instance, the one that you've dialed in this morning was based on an 0208, therefore a UK geographical number. However, you can, within the portal, set this product up on any range of numbers, be that a geographical number like we've set up here, a non-geo number, so you could set this conference bridge up on an 0800 number, an 0845 number, if you so wanted to. Or alternatively, you can actually set up international conference bridges, so you could use any one of our international destinations and set up the conference bridge using those details also. Okay, and then in terms of a bit more of the functionality, I've set this conference call up today on lecture mode, therefore hopefully you can all hear me, I say hopefully, and I can't hear any of you, none of you can hear each other. So that's lecture mode, so that's another option that we have within here. Obviously call recording is set on me as a user, so therefore all of my calls and conference calls are recorded, which is great, so I have access to them, and we will also be sending out this webinar, and we'll do so by obviously sharing the screen, taking a capture of the screen and also the voice recording from the UBOS portal. And then we also have the ability to dial participants in from the conference bridge. So instead of you dialing in, I can actually dial you and bring you in from the conference bridge, which I can show you how we can do shortly. Great. So in terms of how the product works from your point of view, in terms of where you earn your money, how it's set up, how it's provisioned within the portal, first of all, there is no charge for the conference bridge from VanillaIP to resellers. Therefore, you can consume the service at business level free of charge. Now, that gives you two options. You either, therefore, pass that great product onto your customers free of charge and give it as an opportunity to potentially win business as a negotiating tool, or just for you can just assign it as part of your packages and give it to all customers as a standalone product. Alternatively, despite the fact we give it to you free of charge, that doesn't mean that you can't put a charge within your tariffs and charge your customers for it, therefore enhancing your margin opportunity. So that's the first thing. Second of all, there is no charge to add to the user. Where you will make your money on this is from the participant dialing into the conference bridge. So that RRP is at roughly between 3 and 4 pence, which is extremely competitive compared to the other competitor products in the marketplace. So if we were to have a conference call with 4 participants and your RRP rate was 4 pence per minute, then your customer would be charged 4 pence per minute for all participants who dial into the call. So in that scenario, 4 pence per minute times 4 people for the duration of the call. Therefore, you're making probably, we can talk about commercials later, but about 100% margin on those calls. So it's a great opportunity for you to provide your customers with a great product whilst also maintaining a great margin on here. If you are familiar with the webinar or you've spoken to your account manager, you should be familiar with our new bundles. Obviously, the 2,000-minute bundle that we provide does give you access to, or include rather, minutes to the conference bridge. So therefore, you're limiting your exposure to the pence per minute charge, and consequently, you're enhancing your margin. And then there are two other options, again, which are free of charge. There's a web app, which you can access the Moderator Client, and there's also an Outlook plugin as well. Both of these, which we'll talk about shortly, are free of charge. So just to recap, the services will be added at business level, comes from VanillaIP to our resellers with a zero cost. You can either pass that on with a zero rate or add a price within your tariff and charge your customers and make more margin. Your customers will be charged a pence per minute rate per participant who dials into the call. As I've suggested, that comes with an RRP of 3 to 4 pence, for which you'll make probably about 100% margin upon. Great. So in terms of the Outlook app, we'll run through just a couple of slides in this, and then I'll actually jump into my Outlook and show you how you would do this. So all of the information and user guides and installation guides are all accessible via the UBOS portal on the knowledge base on the home page. So after this webinar, if you wanted to go away, you can find all of the information you will need in the portal to find out you get your Outlook plugin. And also kind of your data sheets on how it's set up and how to use the product. But the Outlook web app is a way of you sending out a meeting invite as you normally would for any other meeting, but pre-populate that with your conference bridge details. So it's a quicker way of adding your details into the invite and sending it out to all of the participants. It makes it slightly easier to control and to monitor. But it is also through this web app that you can then access the Moderator Client. So you'll come back, your Outlook app rather. You'll come back into Outlook, into your meeting, and will have access to the application, which you can therefore see all of the people who are dialing into the bridge, user by user. If their name is saved within the directory, you'll see them in there. And then you have the option, you can either kick people out of the call, which is great. You can mute people when there's dogs barking in the background. You can start your lecture mode from here, and it is from within this application where you can actually dial participants. Instead of them dialing into the bridge, you can actually dial out the participants instead by putting in their CLI in here. So we'll jump in and we'll look at that also. Now, for those of you who've taken the new Unity upgrade, is you will see within the conference button at the top of the page, which historically has just been used to set up your ad hoc conference calls, which I mentioned earlier, which we would describe as a call when you needed to bring in a colleague or another participant into the call that you're currently on. You'd dial them, you'd hit the conference, and you'd bring them in. That's an ad hoc conference call, which is what that button within Unity has historically provided. We've now upgraded the functionality within there to give you, again, easier access to get into your conference bridge. So if we jump out of here, we'll out of PowerPoint, and we will jump into my Unity first, which is here. So again, you should all be familiar with Unity. If you're not, it's a great product. Go check it out. We've got plenty of webinars and videos on them. But my conference button up here, by right-clicking on the conference, you will see I have access to my conference bridge. There are then 3 sub-menus. The first is to show my details. So if I've just forgotten what my username, password, effectively my moderator and participant ID are, I can click this button and I get a notification down on the bottom side here, down in the bottom, which is just a way of me recapping what my details are. Alternatively, again, we're going to right-click on Conference, go into my conference bridge here, and we're going to copy the details to clipboard. Now, I've already mentioned we can do this in Outlook, but it may not be that you're doing it in Outlook. You maybe just want to send an email, or you're putting it on the bottom of an email signature, whatever it may be. If we click on Copy Details to Clipboard, we can then jump into, let's just jump into Word. And then if I Control V in Word, you can see all I've done here is just paste my conference details into some text. So it's taken it to your clipboard, pasted it into an email or onto a letter, whatever it may be, but you've got access to do that there. So again, saving you the time for having to type all of these things in. Great. Let's just jump back into Unity and look what our final option was. So right-click on My Conference Bridge and call Bridges Moderator. Now, historically, when you needed to set up your own conference bridge, you would dial into the extension number or to the CLI, be that UK geographical or UK non-geographical, as we've already mentioned, and then I would put in my moderator PIN and then be asked to record my name. Now, by using this option within Unity, this is going to do that first part of that process for me. So by clicking on the Call Bridges Moderator, it's going to instantly dial into that my conference bridge number. It's going to automatically populate that conference bridge with my moderator credentials, and then will allow me to record my name and start the call. So it's probably saving me, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds in terms of the start of setting up a conference call. So it's a great way. So just to recap, we've got show details, which gives you a toast notification on this bottom side down here. We can right-click instead and copy our details to clipboard, which you can then paste into an email or into Word or whatever it may be. And then finally, is call Bridges as moderator, which is going to override the historical manual way of dialing into your bridge, popping in your moderator credentials, and then recording your name. It will do that first section for you. Cool. So then if we jump into Outlook, let's just jump into my calendar in Outlook here, and I'll show you how the Outlook plugin works. So you'll all be familiar with setting up a new meeting within Outlook, so let's do that here. So if we go in, as you normally would, we're going to pick our date and time, we're going to hit New Meeting, and we're going to send this one to myself here, which is great, and we're going to call it Call Regarding Q1 Pipeline. And we'll do it in capitals to emphasize the fact that we're looking for deals. And then we're going to hit on the right-hand side, you will see this new option up here, which you won't currently have, which is the Meet Me conference. We click that. We're going to go onto our conference calls here, and by clicking on my option, it pre-populated this meeting with the conference credentials that my customers or the participants I want to join are going to need to dial into this call. So it's put my CLI in here, it's put my conference ID in here, and again it's populated that in the body of the text as well. So let's send that invite. Send anyway. Great. Now once that meeting is in your diary, that conference call is in your diary, you then have the ability to come back into the meeting, same as before, come into the My Conference on the right hand side, click on here, and you'll see a new option, which is Launch Moderator Client. Now this is where you would come in here and you would have access to, you'd have visibility of all of the participants who are dialing in, and you would then be able to do the functionality which we've already mentioned, which is in here, which gives you the ability to see who's dialed in, to see who's talking by the green lines here. So again, if there's dogs barking in the background, you can see who it is and you can mute them from your screen. Or you could potentially kick people out of here. So all of that is done from within the Outlook plugin application. Great. So one of the key selling points of this over our competitor products is the visibility that your customers will have to how often this conference bridge is being used. So one of the criticisms we've had from other competitor products is that they just receive an invoice at the end of the month without having any visibility of how many calls that have taken place, or also who has set up the conference calls. So within the UBOS portal, at business level, you will have now access to a report which we released last year, which is called the Conference Bridge Report. So let's jump into UBOS, and we'll have a look at where that's accessed. Great. So let's just jump into here. Okay, so we're going to go into UBOS, and we're going to go into business level. I may need to log back in here. So we're at business level, which you'll be familiar with. So we've come down our list on the left-hand side. We've gone into our business. We've selected the customer we want. So when your customer logs in, they'll be doing this on the left-hand side. We've come into reports. We've come into calls. And halfway down, we will see the Conference Bridge Report. So we're going to select this report. Great. I now have options to search via date, via individual, so moderator, or by department, or by business site. So let's just change this to January. So let's just do from the 2nd of Jan until the 27th of Jan. I'm just going to hit search, and we'll see who the Conference Bridge champion is within our business, who's been the busiest. So we hit search here, we give this an opportunity to go away, grab all of the data and come back. So we can see, so within these 25 days in January, there are 13 people within our business who have access to a moderator pin, so effectively have their own conference bridge. And we can see here within this period that the champion is quite clearly Chris Tutt, who had 24 conference calls within that period, and we can see the total duration. Whilst he had the most calls, he didn't spend most time. That would be Ian Sinnott which no doubt he will be incredibly proud of, that he's been the busiest in January. So he had 11 conference calls with a total duration of 29 hours, and your customer will have a cost on this right-hand side, which will be reflected from your tariff that you set up. So the cost your customer sees here will be the charge that you have set within your tariff, and will be the cost that it is to them as a business. Now from here we can see that I've actually had 6 conference calls within this time, totaling 6 hours. Now this is the collective time of these conference calls and all participants. But you'll see here that this 6 is actually hyperlinked, it's got is underlined. If we click on the 6, this will then drill through into me as a moderator and give me visibility of all of the conference calls that I've had within this period. So we can see I had 6 calls, I can see the date that I had them here, I can see how many participants dialed into the conference, and I can also see my total duration. And again, I'm now seeing a cost associated against me as a user, which is great. Now again, you'll see that this here is hyperlinked. So this also is a link, so we can click on the 3. Now what this is going to provide is the 3 people who dialed into this conference bridge, so I've got visibility here of the CLI of the participants that dialed in. So not only, obviously we see that one of these here is an internal user as David Higgins. So not only can I see within this report at business level how many conference calls we've had as a collective group, as a company, which is here. We can see the total cost for all of the calls and the total duration, and then I've got the ability to drill down into a user to see the 6 calls that Lee Houston has had as a user, and then see the participants which have dialed into those 6 calls. So as a recap, that report is accessed at business level within the UBOS portal. We come into reports, we go into calls, halfway down we've got the conference bridge report. We're going to click on there, and that will then take you through into this report and allow you to filter on date range, filter on business site, filter on department, or filter on moderator with the moderators that have used the conference bridge within this time period. Great. So let's jump back to our deck. Sorry, I should have mentioned earlier, on the right-hand side, you do have the ability to ask questions from within the GoToWebinar application. So if you do have any questions, then do put them on the right-hand side, and I'll try and answer them before I finish. But alternatively, is you have got our details on here. So you can speak to your account manager, who will be able to give you your rates, your inbound call rates for the minutes which I mentioned earlier. Also be able to point you in the right direction to the user guides from within the portal. But as I've already suggested, if you go into UBOS, on the homepage you will find the install file for the Outlook plugin, and you will also find your setup guides and installation guides for the conference bridge in there. So Charlotte, I'm not sure, is there any questions that have come in so far that I need to answer?
No, there's no questions, Lee.
Fantastic. You all have clearly done a good job of explaining the product in detail then. So if there's no questions, that's great. I'll leave you all to it. Hope that was useful. As I say, go into UBOS, find the details. We'll hopefully get this recorded webinar out to you on our YouTube channel within the next 48 hours, so you can access it again and listen to my overview once more. So thanks again for joining. We will see you in a couple of weeks' time when we do our next webinar. Cheers. Bye-bye.